Hi, and welcome to this video on Spline Kit Pro. Today we're just going to talk about the Spline Animator component and the inspector. Maybe go over some of the fields that maybe we haven't really covered in other videos. So let's just go ahead and get started here. You can see that I have this scene, which is the same scene that I used in the previous video when I talked about the Spline inspector. So we're just going to keep the same scene and take a look at this here. So let's see, so over here we've got the spline. This is where obviously you attach them to a spline or set the spline for this animator. Now this button right here, orient spline up to my current rotation. If you watched the previous video, you know that there's this field over here called spline up. And if you need to have the spline up be different, for example, you want it to be pointing up in a Z, you can change it like that, okay? This button, what it does is, let's say that you have some character in the scene and he's oriented the way that you want him to be moving along the spline. For example, let's just say that he's maybe kind of twisted a little bit that way. You can see his center is maybe off, but you get the point. He's rotated like that. We want to orient the spline up to point in that direction. You can just say, or hit this button rather, and it puts him obviously back on the spline, but sets our spline up, if you come back here, to match that vector. Okay, so that's all that does. Okay, let's see, what else do we got in here? Auto start, automatically starts when you hit play. Use adaptive sampling. I think I've talked about this in another video, but it's kind of important. If you have a lot of sharp turns or whatever, the natural way of splines is it tends to lose speed as it goes around tight curves or that sort of thing. It's just the way that it evaluates. The way that a curve is evaluated is basically by summing up these segments. So the faster you're going, the less accurate the distance that's going to be calculated, or the step is. So what you can do is you can use this adaptive sampling to divide up that step into multiple steps to get a much better or more accurate calculation of the distance it needs to travel for the speed that it's going. So you can unselect this if you're having, say, any kind of performance issues, because it is more performance intensive. But I would just normally always leave it selected unless you need to uncheck it. And if you have it unchecked and you see that you're losing speed around curves or whatnot, you can use this. So that should take care of it. This subsample scaler is basically how much we're going to subdivide that time step up. So in one frame we need to go X amount of distance, right? And so when we get to that calculation to evaluate the spline, rather than just evaluating it, at the full time step ahead of where it is now, we're going to cut that up. In this case, like by 100, and that will give us a much better approximation of the distance, or the t-value should be, to cover that distance for the speed that he's going. So, in other words, that's kind of a mouthful, but basically, if you see that you're losing speed around curves, turn this on and it should take care of it. Okay, let's see, transform updates. You can have the Spline Animator change the local position or the global position, same with the rotation. If you need to use that, use spline rotation. You can use just the pitch, heading, roll if you like, or none of them. Apply banking. This is it's an attempt to determine what the bank should be. So like if you have a plane flying along a path and it's turning, this will basically look ahead a bit and try and determine the bank. It's not an exact science because you need to know really kind of how far to look ahead, and if you select this, you can kind of select these things. So this scaler here would say, if I'm going at this speed, I need to look ahead this much, but let's amplify that. So you could set that to 10. It would actually look ahead 10 times what it would need to. Okay. This bank amplifier would mean if the bank determined that I needed to bank 5 degrees, you could set that to 2 and it would bank 10 degrees. So it would just, amplify the bank. Okay, and then you can set a max bank here, so don't bank more than 30 degrees, say, if you want to set that to 30. -1 just means there's no max bank. Okay, so again, it's just a kind of an approximation to handle banking for planes and helicopters and things like that. Again, you need to kind of know about your spline and set these parameters up, correctly to make it look right, but it's there if you want to use it. And finally, down here we have smooth rotation. So this is kind of more useful with this apply banking. It can be used anywhere, but really it smooths from the last rotation to your current rotation. So this is just the amount kind of per frame. So you can use that if you want to. You probably don't need to, but sometimes it helps this banking look a bit better. Okay. Override base scale, we've talked about that in the scaling video. That's a pretty simple one, so look at that if you need to know. Speed, you can set a speed and you can set an acceleration here. Those should be pretty self-explanatory. Looping, that just means what does it do when it gets to the end of the spline. It can do none in this case, and in that case you have two options. You can reset it so he'll snap back to the end, or you can disable it and he'll just be deactivated and removed from the screen. You've also got circular, which means when he gets to the end, he will just go back to the beginning and start going again and continuously do that. And reverse means he'll go to the end, turn around, and go backwards. Okay. Time step, you can use whatever time step you want from Unity. You can use the variable time step. Fixed, which is in line with the physics, is the default. They're smooth time step or they're unscaled. Unscaled, I think it's just not affected by their time scaler. So if you're using something like bullet time, you would use, and you didn't want it to be affected by bullet time, you would use unscaled. Update method, again, fixed is in the physics step. Updates the normal update when all the other game objects get updated, and late update is after everything else. So you can use that if you want. And then this t value, which you've probably seen many times, just allows you to scrub him along there. It also sets the starting t value, so it's there, and you hit start, he's going to start from there. Okay. So that is all of that, and hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, feel free to send me a message, splinekit@gmail.com, splinekit one word. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video.